Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the 14th day of October, 2024. I already did this. I got almost to the end, and the screen started jumping and then was freezing, and I'm like, oh Lord. And honestly, this reading links to last Thursday's reading a little bit, both with I was and the moon in it. We had I was, Laetitia, the moon, 10 of swords, and 2 of wands, where we were manifesting joy from on last Thursday in our lives. This is, and I said that it's a more active type of uh, decision, essentially. But today I started out, I pulled I was again, the link between opposites, the connection between opposites. It's the 13th rune of the Elder Futhark. It's drawing higher awareness into physical reality or into physical awareness. It's made up of laguz, essentially. You can see laguz there, and if you turn it here, it's not like it's laguz forward and reverse, because it's not. And if you were to turn it and spin it, it looks like a spiral or a vortex. And literally bringing in higher awareness into our physical reality, into our own ego awareness, if you will. But instead of Laetitia, again, which is joy and intuition and portends good fortune and imagination and all of that, this time we have populace, which populace means it's a complement of via, which via we had last a week ago Monday, so 2 weeks ago on Monday we had via, and via is about it's just a line of single dots, and anytime you see single dots in a geomancy rune, that's an active principle. 2 dots is a reflects a passive influence, and so here, whereas via is about setting an intentional path, populace would be its complement. It would be the follower or the crowd, and if you look at it in terms of energetic influence today, what it's suggesting is just allowing higher awareness just to govern everything, and to take that time to observe and reflect, and before you jump in to make any kind of decisions about anything. And then I ended up drawing 4 cards, but initially I drew 3 cards. It was the moon, the 5 of cups, and the tower. And again, normally when my computer goes wonky, I just start all over. But this is such a great reading that I'm not. Sometimes I don't. I'll just do what I've already got, especially if I've already gone through most of the reading and getting ready to close the reading out. It just doesn't feel like I should start over again here. But initially we had an overall numerology of 7 for I was, and the first 3 cards, the moon, the 5 of cups, and the tower. And then that came out to a 7 numerology, and you'll begin to see here why I want to do it this way. Again, with the 7, you're looking at observation and letting things settle out. You'll see that with the tower, of why I it's one, and plus the 4th card I'll tell you about when I'm done talking about this, the initial part of the reading. I'm not going to tell you what the 4th card is yet, but I'll just tell you this: it does reinforce everything. So that's why I couldn't let the reading go. And besides, we've got 2 cards from the major arcana, and I'll tell you that the 4th card is a 3rd. So lots of soul archetype energy here. So again, when you're talking about I was and populace, and just allowing higher self to essentially be all that you are, which is that's all you are anyway. The ego gets involved and things get dicey, but if you don't allow that to happen, and you just sit there in that higher awareness and don't judge and don't react and don't get into it, essentially stay removed from it, stay above it all, like the hermit would do, being up on top of a mountain. Another card from the major arcana, and no, that's not the 4th card here today, but but that's what he's doing. He's getting above it all to be able to allow the light of spirit to inform what his perceptions are of his world. Well, that's what this is essentially about. And with the 7 numerology for the reading, the initial 7 numerology, because that's going to change. Again, that's what you're doing. You're letting higher awareness inform the situation by standing back, observing, letting things settle before making any kind of a judgment or a decision about something. So let's start with the moon. Here we have the 18th card of the major arcana as a 9 numerology of endings, completion, spirituality, generosity, humanitarianism. But here we have the moon looking down, none too happy, at the wolf and the dog barking at it from below down there. They're on either side of a path. You can look at the dog as the receptive side of self, and the wolf, here, this is the wolf and this is the dog. This would be the projective side of self, or masculine side. This would be the receptive or feminine side of self. You're looking to have some kind of a rebalancing. You see the crayfish here coming up out of the water. Crayfish signals transformation or transition because it sheds its skin. Anything that sheds its skin there's this transformation process that happens, whether it's a crayfish, a lobster, a snake, spiders do it. Some do. I don't know if all do. But in any event, there's that feeling of newness or of rebirth here also with this card. It also talks about dreams and intuition, but it also talks about illusion and deception. So moving to the 5 of Cups, 5 is about change and protection, freedom versus restriction, innovation, variety. But here something has changed. You see this, if you look very closely, you see this dark line here. It continues on here and here. You see it sometimes as a dark line in the major, or rather in the Rider-Waite tarot, or sometimes you'll see it as a dual line. It's not in every card, but it gives the impression of this is happening here and that, and either this is what's coming or this is what was. There's a relationship maybe between the two. It just kind of depends on the scene on the card. But here we've had some, say we'll start with deception, some illusion, and that's caused him great grief. Something's changed. So he thought something was one way with the moon. He's discovering, it's actually something else. Something else is going on. And it's caused him a whole lot of grief and a whole lot of loss. Now, either you can see he's on this side, either this is his home or it's the king's castle. This could be someone that was on a mission for the king, if you will. So there could be something in his external life, his work life or whatever, where something didn't go as expected, and there was some deception involved, some lying involved, and he's upset and he doesn't know what to do. So he's just standing there with his head hanging like it is. He's looking down at the ground, clearly upset. We don't know if this is his home and he's afraid to go tell people at the house what happened, or if it's something that happened at home that's causing this. So he's either got to go tell the people in the castle something that's going to be upsetting to everybody, not just him. Things didn't work out the way he wanted, or maybe he thought things were going to be a certain way, and maybe he took a job and it just turns out that it's not what he thought, or if it's in a relationship, if it's involving a relationship with somebody, maybe he was more committed than the other person was, and the other person said all kinds of wonderful things and made him think that, and then they go and they step out on him or whatever. And so, it could be anything personal or work related or something. But all we know here is something has changed for him. And he's having to cope with this loss he feels over the deception, whatever it is. So if there's something that you've found out today or in the last few days where, you're upset about it and you realize you've been conned or deceived or, taken in some way, whether it's on a personal level in a love relationship, or friends or family, or coworkers, or the job that you're in. Maybe you thought the business you were working for was above board, and you discover it's not, and it's like, oh Lord, what do I do now? Because I can't work there now, and I have to go find a job, and but whatever it is, there's been something that's deceived you, and or taken you in, or conned you in some way into believing something, and now you're just at a loss to know what to do. So you're just standing there waiting to figure it out, right? But the thing is, when you go through something like that, especially if you start to realize it, and you're going to have to make a decision about it, right? You can't ignore the truth in front of you anymore. That's an extraordinarily transforming thing, right? Which brings us to the Tower. Again, the 16th card of the Major Arcana, that's a 7 numerology, again aligning with the overall numerology of the reading thus far without this 4th card coming in. Here you see the lightning coming in, blows the top off the tower. You see 2 people falling. We'll just say to the moat below, they're going to do a little swimming. We see fire coming out and smoke coming out of the windows. And generally speaking, the Tower is thought to be very, very transformative. It's disruption, it's catalytic change, but it's change that creates something positive. Even if you have to cope with the fact you've been lied to by somebody, okay, now you know. Right? And so there's going to be some catalytic change between you and that person, right? They're not going to get away with that again. And it may break up the relationship, essentially. That may end it. So that's catalytic in and of itself, especially if it's a marriage. Because now, those of you who have been through something like that, I've never been through that. But because I've been married to the same guy for 45 years. But people that have more than one marriage, you know what I'm talking about. Suddenly everything stops, and you can't look away from it anymore, right? You see the deception, you see the catalytic nature of it all, and the change that's about to take place. So, here you have the 5, which begins that change, and here you have the transformation where it actually happens. You're basically letting go of perceptions that no longer serve you. With its 7 numerology, you're looking at, again, letting everything settle out. And observing and seeing, okay, what direction do I need to go? In other words, how do I need to handle this deception that's just happened? And because it's so profound, it creates such a profound change in your life, you can't ignore it. It doesn't mean you're going to ruminate on it, but at the same time, although you probably will, but most people do, but at the same time, it's propelling you in a new direction, and that's represented by the Tower here today. So it really defines the first 2 cards as being a serious situation that's happened. Again, whether it's in a love relationship, whether it's friends that, you thought your friend was somebody that they're not, now they're not. And it may create a break there between you, and then the friendship is no more, maybe. Because when you see something that's this profound, then the effect is just as profound, right? So we'll stop there for a second. So we've got a 7 numerology right now. We've got I was and populace that's telling us to just drop resistance to higher awareness here and just let higher awareness view this. And so maybe, in spite of all of this, you're stepping back and you are trying to understand things from a perspective that's not as emotional, although it can be difficult. You have to try to take the emotion out of it and just take a look at it very rationally and say, okay, what do I need to do now? How do I need to see this? I can get caught up in the emotion of it. I can get caught up in the anger of it. But at some point I have to move on, and I have to take my path in another direction, essentially, and not live within this type of deception any longer. And in comes death. The 13th card of the major arcana. It has a 4 numerology. 7 and 4 now is 11. 11's the new overall numerology for the reading. And what is that? The 11 is the master number for awakening and enlightenment. You see why I didn't want to let go of the reading? I just think it really describes the process that can happen when something profound has happened, when you've realized that, what I thought was real is not, and the loss and the sorrow and the grief and the anger that you feel over it all. And at some point, you have to let that settle, and you have to allow the transformation to happen to where you can then move from that state into something more powerful. In other words, you step into your own power, into your own authority in a situation like that, and you say, you know what, I'm not living that way now. Whether it's a job you feel you have to leave. My husband was in that position one time where he had to leave, well, a couple times he had to leave a job because it just wasn't to his... he has a high moral standard, and it didn't even come close. And so it's like, and he didn't realize it, and then, but over time you do, the more time you spend someplace, you realize, right? And it was a long time ago, actually before we met. And he just says, I can't do this. I can't work here. They lie to me, I've known people like that have experienced that, where they've just had to leave jobs because they can't trust the boss to tell them the truth about anything. And so it's that sort of thing. But if it's a love relationship or a friendship, the same thing can happen. And you have to let that transformation take place where you look at things and you realize what the truth is. And I think that's what the Tower is saying here. Which brings us again to death, the real transformation, moving on into a new path. Here you see death riding through. You see the little ferryman's boat on the river down there. You see the king is dead on the ground. You see the queen is bereft. This could be his son, his child. You see the priest giving last rites. But over here, what do you see? You see 2 towers that you saw here. One of which you see here, where the decision is made to let this transform your life a bit here, to where you're no longer hanging on to an illusion that's not going to get you anywhere, but trouble, basically, and heartache and all of that. But here you have, instead of the moon above the 2 towers, you have the sun. The 18th card of the major arcana is the moon. The 19th is the sun. And so you go from the moon of deception to the sun of awakening. Well, you're doing the same thing here in the death card. And now that this has all taken place, you see the sun rising between the 2 pillars. A rebalancing is taking effect. And what is that? That's also transformation. It's rebirth. It's transition into a new path, into a new day, into a new life, into a new experience, essentially. And so you see how this progresses. And so I think for today, you could be experiencing something where you feel deceived. Whether we've talked about this, whether it's on the macrocosm in society, or whether it could be a religion that you belong to, where you realize, this is not what I thought it was. And, or a relationship or a work situation. Could be anything at all in your life, either in the macrocosm or the microcosm of your personal life. Something has changed, and you feel upset about it. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. You should feel whatever feelings you have about something and accept them for what they are. But at some point, you have to have the transformation and awakening of perception to a new reality. Letting things settle with the 7 numerology of the Tower, letting things settle out so that you can see what you really have when all is said and done. And so, not that anything is necessarily going to get repaired. It could, but I would think that it probably won't, that there's maybe it's like one of those things where, okay, I wish you well, but I need to go this way now, you know, and we just need to part company, and we're just, maybe individual differences are too great. You could say that. You could just, even if you say anything at all, it's this is who I am. I don't fit in this type of a narrative. This is not the type of narrative where deception is happening all the time, where where I belong. I don't belong there. I don't fit there. My energy doesn't vibrate there. And so from there you make that decision, to transform into something else, to transform your life in a way that brings you to a place of light and of higher awareness, governing all of it. With this fourth card, we have the 11 numerology. And again, I think it dovetails very well when we combine Iwas and Populus together, where we're allowing higher awareness to govern how we see things and how we experience things, even something as awful as lying and deception can be. And others expecting us to just live with it, and accept it as fact, so that whole alternative facts nonsense, where that's just another word for lying. Here's the con. We're going to call it some cute name called alternative facts, but in truth, it's not the truth at all. There's no alternative facts. Something, this is either the death card or it isn't, right? This is either a mouse or it isn't. This is a cup or it isn't. There's no alternative facts here. That's what the kind of thing I'm saying here. And so I think that again, if you're experiencing this, you've got to take a look at it realistically. Feel what you feel, but at some point, let that subside a bit and step back and try to see the truth of it all. Try to understand what is this? Why is somebody trying to con me into believing something that isn't true? What kind of a person are they really? And if it's somebody that you've trusted, you're ultimately going to realize you can't trust them. And so now you have to walk away. You can't stay within that negative energy, that ego bound energy, essentially. You because Iwas and Populus are saying, no, just allow higher awareness to govern all of it. See it for what it is, the lesson that's there for you. Take it and go and move on into the light, essentially. That a light that you can resonate within, essentially, instead of trying to be confused and you don't know what's going on. It's like, well, what just happened? And when you get to that point, you've got to pay attention. It's not your imagination, in other words, not at all. And so I think that being able to go from a 7, which is a higher vibratory number anyway, all the way to an 11 here with this, to where we're manifesting higher awareness and becoming an awakening to higher truth, and awakening to who we really are and what we're really willing to put up with in this world and what we're not. If you're like me, I can't deal with lying. I've my whole life it's been this way. Don't lie to me ever, because it just chips away at trust. Sometimes it destroys it altogether. And, in the end, if it's something that's repetitive with somebody, it's never going to be any other way, and if you're a trusting person, and I'm pretty trusting, until something happens and it's like, oh, geez, but at the same time, if I don't get a weird vibe about somebody, I'm just going to be open. Well, maybe that's not the best way for me to be. Maybe it is, but I don't know. It's just what I do. But if you lie to me, then I can't cope with that. It's just too much, And if it's not something where, oh, geez, I just didn't want to tell you, and I lied. That's one thing, right? And they feel bad, and you see it and you feel it and all of it. That's a different story. But if somebody's manipulating you to believe something that serves them, that's a problem. And you have to see it as one. And I think with the Tower, it's telling you, let that transformation happen so that you can allow things so you understand what they are from a higher perspective. And you're not influenced by ego going, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal, when in fact it may be, and then allow the transformation to take place with the death card. Let go of perceptions that no longer serve, move into the light, move into the new day, and create that new path for yourself, no matter what that looks like. So anyway, that's it. That's all I wanted to say about this. And one thing I wanted to say. So I don't know if I had already taken pictures of the Aurora Borealis last week. I didn't see it the first time, but I could barely see anything this time, so I took pictures anyway, and there they were. There it was. It was just wonderful. And because somebody said, if you just take pictures, you'll see it. It'll come up on your camera, but maybe not to the naked eye. And we had cloud cover. And so I'm going to put them on the blog over at Stepping Aside so you can see them there. But yesterday was my birthday, and I got pictures of the comet. So we sat outside. We waited to fix dinner, and we went outside in twilight, and we waited and waited. And I started to see this little smudgy, a little distortion, and so I put the camera, and then I waited a little bit. I put the phone up and looked, and there it was. I could see it in the camera app of the phone. I could see the comet. So I took several pictures of that, and so I got to see a comet on my birthday, and I got to see the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, which I've not seen since I left Alaska when I was 10. I used to see them all the time up there, but I've not seen them since, and I was so upset that I didn't know about them that other night, where they were so brilliant. But we had cloud cover, so it wouldn't have mattered. But maybe I could have taken pictures and saw it that way. I don't know. But at least I got this. I mean, this whole last week has just been phenomenal for that, and I was so happy. So best birthday present ever. That and spending an hour on video call with my grandchildren. My husband and I were talking to the grandkids for an hour. It was great. It was so great. Because I don't think we're going to probably be able to see them until maybe spring or something. So we have snow here in the mountains, and it's tough to get over there during that time because the roads are not the greatest, but we just don't tend to travel anymore during the wintertime. So probably maybe March we'll get to see them, hopefully, unless we have some good weather or something, and then we'll dash over there and dash back, but we love them so much. So it was so cool to see them yesterday for an hour, a whole hour. We got them for a whole hour, and it was just great. So anyhow, I hope you all had a good weekend, and check out the stuff on the blog at Stepping Aside. The web address there is imsteppingaside.com. If you forget, click on more below the video and a window will open and it'll be right there. There's a new social media site up called sez.us, SEZ.us. I signed up for that, so I'm going to have to add that to the if you go all the way down, open that window up, there's a social media site, so I'm going to have to add that one there. That seems interesting. I have to go on it again today and look at it some more, but so far it seems interesting. But I think it's in just response to Twitter and what it's become and all of that all these other sites have come up but anyway, there's that I'm on now, but I don't have a link yet to it in the show more section, or the more section. So I'll put that up there today, though, I guess, and check out the blog anyway. The forecast is out, the astrological overview's out, the let's see, I can't remember now what I did. Cleavers is this next time. So chickweed, I think, was this time for the herb magic post. And then I think cleavers is going to be next week. And I love cleavers. It's such a wonderful herb to use medicinally. It's just great. And let's see, also the correspondences for work and magic, they're up as well. So if you're interested in that, go over to the blog and look at that. There, it's a longer post there. The correspondences post is, and it's shorter on Patreon, Substack, and Medium. So if you want to see the whole thing, you've got to go over to the blog and see it there. But anyway, thanks for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't. I'd love you to do that. And come back again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.